Welcome to the Fire Take Podcast, where we give our hot, fire-coded takes on the internet's most interesting stories. Today is going to be a shorter episode, a special episode. We have a interview we did later on we're going to share with you. It is holiday season, so life is crazy. We just got back from a Choosify meetup group with the local group here in town.
Shout out Choosify St. Louis. If you're in the area, come join us. Find us on Facebook.
Yep, find us on Facebook. I know we got a lot of listeners in the group, so I appreciate you guys.
You guys are awesome. We always enjoy hanging out with you every other week.
Yeah.
We do case studies one week, and then we have like a hangout, meet up somewhere at a brewery or pop-up event or
grab a drink.
Some fun things and just hang out and talk with cool, like-minded people.
Yeah, it was a really good time. I really enjoyed it this week. Just everybody was kind of chill, and we had to call an audible based on holiday crowding at our initial venue, but everything was super
the
flex.
Pop-up crowd.
Yeah. No, it was a really good time. Got to see a lot of the regulars, got to see some new people.
Mm-hmm.
Always fun to see new faces at the Phi meetups and get to hear their stories. Everybody has an interesting story in the Phi community.
Oh, yeah. Chock-a-block full of very fascinating and interesting people.
Sure, 100%.
Yeah, people from all sorts of disciplines. You got medicine, you got finance, you got technology, you've got real estate. That's all so many interesting paths to financial independence represented in our group.
It's a little heavy on the real estate, if I'm honest.
Well,
not a bad place to build a lot of wealth pretty quick.
I've heard it's super easy. It's very passive income. All you do is sit back and write it and collect a check every month. Isn't that true?
I'm so bad at real estate. I've lost so much money on real estate. Like, I don't know how, but I have. All right, we can get into that someday maybe. But anyway.
Maybe we'll have an episode about us just ranting about real estate.
Yeah, but we're not here to give takes on Tim's poor choices in real estate. We're going to give a take on this poor bastard on the internet.
We like to limit ours to half-hour episodes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There you go. This is a short episode, as I said. So we're going to talk about this guy. All right. Our story today is from Am I the Asshole? IATA, mother-in-law gifting us 5 timeshares in her will, costing us $9,500 annually. We asked her not to do this, and she lost it. My mother-in-law is, quote-unquote, gifting us 5 timeshares in her will, in which the administrative amount will cost us $9,500 annually. We are not interested in owning timeshares, nor are we interested in paying that much in admin cost. We asked an attorney, and he said it is expensive and a hassle to try to get rid of the timeshares. So we politely and respectfully asked mother-in-law not to leave those to us in her will. She absolutely lost it and was extremely upset, saying we were ungrateful and that she is refusing to change her will. We asked if she would be willing to go ahead and transfer the timeshares to someone else before her death, but she refused. Am I the asshole? And there is an important edit here, edited to add. There is a perpetuity clause on these timeshares. She is not leaving my husband and I any money. In fact, she has lots of debt, only leaving us the timeshares.
Not the asshole.
Not the asshole. Can you imagine someone with 5 timeshares has a lot of debt?
I am shocked.
I'm appalled. I cannot believe that someone who has shown such
great decision-making processes.
Right, sound financial decision-making has 5 timeshares. Right?
5 timeshares?
5.
Usually people only get saddled with 1, but these poor guys get stuck with 5?
Yeah.
That costs $10,000
a year.
Just in administrative fees.
Yeah.
They're paid off. This is just what it costs to maintain them.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. We don't get any information on OP.
We don't know how old they are. We don't know where they're at in life.
Does $10,000, is that a huge deal to them? Are they really well off? Where $10,000 is a drop in the bucket, and and maybe they wanted to take 5 vacations a year to the same place.
every year.
Every year.
Year after
But
year.
but you can transfer
after
it.
year.
There's so many. Have you not sat through one of these timeshare? You get a free bottle of tequila. You get a free spa service. Like, yeah, you get all sorts of things by
We
sitting
got a
through
free bottle of
timeshares.
tequila for winning a bags tournament in Mexico.
Yeah,
I don't
but-
need to sit through a 2-hour presentation for that.
But you didn't get the experience of having a salesman sit next to you and your mom and pitch the timeshare to your mom and her like break the news to the poor guy that, oh, this guy right here is the one that actually has money that can actually buy a timeshare.
No, because as previously stated, I make wise financial choices and I avoid anything that looks or resembles a timeshare like the plague, which is increasingly more difficult to avoid these days. But that's another topic for another day.
It really, so it was a confluence of me being cheap and not wanting to pay for my own spa service. I
Yeah, that
think.
checks out.
That's really how it got me there. And 2 hours later, I probably would have been happier paying the $100 for the spa service.
Yes. Oh my goodness. But like also, can we just talk about the fact that like mother-in-law has like just run shipshod all over these guys' boundaries? They're like, hey, can you not do this? And she's like, not only am I gonna am I doubling down and I'm gonna do
Right.
it anyway, I'm gonna make you try and feel bad about it.
Yep.
This is basically a mother-in-law going, hey, would you like me, upon my death, to leave you a steaming pile of shit on your front porch that's on fire that costs you $10,000 every year to
Yeah.
put out?
Okay, so we've trashed mother-in-law. I'm going to spend a little bit of time. Where is OP? Where could he have done better? I think that's important whenever you have one of these asshole things, because a lot of people, they come and they're like, "Am I the asshole?" And like clearly they're not the asshole, and it's boring, right? But like, where could OP have done better? Because we're all trying to self-actualize. We're all trying to improve ourselves, right? So where could he have done better?
So, from the way that it's written, it says my mother-in-law and my husband and I. Honestly, this is between mother-in-law and her husband.
It is, yes.
She needs to have hubby lay down the law.
Right. And
For
that's a good
for
question.
His family, right?
So I'm looking for pronouns here. So when we politely and respectfully ask mother-in-law, okay, so it's not, her husband is not throwing her to the wolves. So that's good. How could they, OP and her husband, have maybe approached it a little differently? So one option, it looks like they talked to an attorney. So like this attorney says it's a hassle, right? When you look in the comments, there's a lot of people that are talking about maybe there are easier ways to get rid of these. I know there's like websites where you can sell them for $1.
A penny.
And yeah, because this is like end of life planning stuff, right? If you can do the research and be like, okay, this is dumb. I don't want it. I don't care about this, but it's not going to be a hassle. Therefore, I will just smile, nod, let this person die thinking that they did a nice thing. And then you throw it right in the trash, but they're dead, right? They don't see you throw it in the trash.
Yeah.
Because they did. Right. So that's the only, if we're looking for OP to improve her behavior, like maybe look for a way to avoid that conflict, especially when it comes to end of life stuff, estate planning stuff. If you can at least let somebody die thinking that they did a thing, I don't know, maybe seek that out. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, that seems like a very
Yeah.
reasonable way to approach it. Like, I don't think that you could approach it better. You know, isn't it funny that you have to like gentle parent
Right.
your own parents?
Yeah.
Like the same techniques work on your parents as they do your toddlers.
Yeah.
I see you're having really big feelings right now.
You're having big feelings, Susan. Sorry you got fleeced and you're in super debt because of buying 5 timeshares. Yeah, you're right. Maybe it's not OP's responsibility, and maybe I'm just too much of a pacifist and I'm too conflict avoidant for my own good. But that's where my head goes, is like, how can I avoid conflict with this angry boomer that is going to blow up at me because her timeshares aren't worth anything? That's where I would go with it. But like I said, that's conflict avoidance, and that's not always healthy. So I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm working on conflict avoidance because I don't know. I feel comfortable in conflict avoidance personally, but it is something I can recognize in myself as a potential problem.
We're going to fight?
We're going to fight about it? Not if I back down first.
Not if you avoid conflict. Oh, but people in the comments are saying that you can be willed something and you don't have to accept
Oh, yeah.
an
That's the other thing.
inheritance.
Right.
He said most places, even if something is willed to you, doesn't mean you have to accept it. Let mother-in-law know you plan to refuse it or gift it to an organization, preferably one that she doesn't like. You can disclaim the attempted bequest from the will. You will need a lawyer to file paperwork to rescind that. But honestly, I wonder if mother-in-law has no money and only has debt. Don't they take your liabilities from your assets and then you get whatever's left over? Does this count as an asset or a liability?
I don't know if an executor of a will, obviously we are not attorneys here. We are not, certainly not estate attorneys. I haven't even taken a loved one through the estate process.
Knock on wood.
Right. Love that for us. But I don't know if that executor of the will would go through the trouble of extracting any value that might be in these timeshares, if there is. I know when John Oliver did a whole episode on timeshares, and he did talk about websites that people use to sell them. Like his conclusion was they're scams up and down, but there are websites where people sell them, people buy them, yada, yada, yada. Right.
You buy them on eBay.
Yeah, you can buy them. And like I say, I think you mentioned it. There are places you buy a timeshare for a penny. And I don't know, maybe it works out if you're really only paying, she's paying on average $2,000 a year. If she gets a week of, or 2 weeks of hotel rooms in a really nice place for $2,000 a year, maybe it's not awful.
I mean,
she might have had to pay $20,000 up front, but if you don't have to do that, then yeah, maybe.
You know, I kind of wonder now what happened to my grandma's timeshare. She had a timeshare at some place on the beach in Florida. It could potentially be that place got, blown over in a hurricane, doesn't exist anymore, in which case that's a best case scenario. But, I don't know what happened to that. But my friend had a timeshare through this program. It was one of the ones that used like points and stuff. So you could like cash in your points for different places so you didn't have to go to the same place.
Right. Yeah.
And we went a couple of years in a row, a whole bunch of us. They had like a 2-bedroom hotel suite basically with their access level. And it was fun. We had a kitchen and everything. And it was in Wisconsin Dells. So we went skiing.
Okay.
And, it was a good time. But then we stopped going because their kids were getting a little older and they wanted to save up enough points to be able to use that anywhere near Disney. So we stopped going to that. But, I mean, that could work for you if you decide that it is worth it for your family if you don't have to pay $20,000 up front.
Sure.
But
now we're starting to sound like timeshare salesmen.
I know. Yeah. So. Buyer beware. I did have a friend who sold timeshares for a while.
There you go.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's lucrative.
Only made it like 6 months. Yeah. No, it wasn't.
Oh.
It was horrible. Nobody bought a timeshare because everybody knew how bad timeshares are.
Yeah, they've got a rough. But yet still, like you can find places that will, I know I've gotten offers recently, like we'll put you up for a weekend in Vegas. You just have to sit in this room for 2 hours to like hear about.
You know what? We are in a tax bracket where our time is more valuable than that. And we will pay for the spa treatments if we want.
We will.
We aren't even spa people.
We are not spa people, but we are like weekend away people.
That's true.
So, yeah.
We are bottle of tequila people. Although I say that, and that was almost 2 years ago, and we still haven't even opened that bottle of tequila, so...
Yeah, the bottled tequila, I think, was actually part of a Hannibal Buress bit. He does a bit on timeshare salesman. But, okay. So, I think we beat the timeshares to death. Don't buy one. Don't.
Just don't.
Don't give them to your heirs as a problem for them to solve.
Leave them to the people that you hate.
But also be conflict avoidant and don't anger dying people. Or old people.
Only anger the ones that have no money.
Yeah. Only anger young and sprightly people.
They have the longest time to hold a grudge
Right.
against you.
Yeah. It really set that grudge in. Okay. Well, so we are going to now, as part of our shorter episode here, we're going to play an interview we did with Chuck Jaffe. And Gwen, what can you tell us about Chuck?
Yeah, so Chuck is a friend of ours from the financial content creation community. Chuck and I first met at FinCon, I think in 2017 or 2018. He's just a fascinating guy. He is the host of Money Life, which is a weekday radio show and or podcast. And he is a journalist by trade and wrote the Your Funds column for MarketWatch for 14 years and has written 3 personal finance books. So Chuck knows personal finances and how to talk about them, and it's super entertaining, and I think you are really going to like it.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, and we answer actually a listener question that Chuck had, and we kind of do it in our fire take way. And if any of our listeners have questions and they want to send them to firetakespod@gmail.com, we would love to hear them, or you can put them as comments to our podcast at our various locations, such as Spotify or on YouTube, or message us on Instagram. We are at firetakespod on Instagram. And if you are looking to get in touch with us, you can always just go to firetakespod.com, and we have links everywhere we can be found. But with all that said, please enjoy our interview with Chuck Jaffe. All right, and we will see you probably in the new year. Thanks, guys.
I'd like to ask you some questions.
Oh, you can ask questions.
Just because I don't have the answers to your question doesn't mean there aren't any.
Oh, no, it does not mean there are no answers to your questions, because if I can't answer them, I get people who can. This is Your Questions Answered on Money Life. And yes, we definitely are interested in answering your questions.
I'm sorry, but all questions must be submitted in writing.
You do have to submit your questions in writing. So send them to chuck@moneylifeshow.com. And if I can't answer them, well, I'll probably go get someone to help me. And today I am joined by Gwen Mers and Tim Joyner. They are the co-hosts of Fire Takes. Now, if Gwen's name rings a bell, she's the blogger behind Fiery Millennials. And in fact, we did a chat when I was at FinCon. Tim is her husband, and they have started Fire Takes. And of course, Gwen's story about Fire is that she was pushing for Fire, found that some of the things about the Fire movement, financial independence, retire early, not necessarily where she wanted to go. So she stepped back and is now in a more relaxed form of Fire. Some people would call it Coast Fire. The compelling point she made when we were talking at FinCon is that as a young person in their 30s, she saved enough while she was doing the Fire stuff that she never really needs to contribute to a retirement account again. And as long as the market does what the market does, she will be fine. And she's absolutely right. But she and Tim, along with getting married, decided that they wanted to create a podcast that looks at questions about financial independence and retiring early, that digs in on stuff that they see around the internet. We have a long link to the Fire Takes podcast. It's in our show notes and on our guest page. And of course, if you want to find out more about Gwen, check fierymillennials.com. Gwen and Tim Joyner, welcome to Money Life.
Thanks for having us, Chuck.
Thanks a lot, Chuck.
So I want to dig in on a question, but first, just a little plug for Fire Takes, because you're getting a question today from my audience, but it's not so much questions. It's things that you dig up and root around and find on subreddits and Substacks and on the internet and whatever. How do you decide which things you're going to take on Fire Takes?
Well, we look around on Reddit, like you said. We're really looking for the interesting conversations that are happening on the internet around money. We try to mix in a little bit of really high drama, intrigue, entertainment kind of questions. And then every once in a while, we'll sprinkle in some really informative questions of things that we think maybe we have something that people can learn from listening to our takes.
Usually, if we're sitting around on our phones looking at these questions. One of us goes, wow. All right, this is going on the podcast. This is a good one. That's how I know.
Well, I'm not sure that this is a wow question, other than I think I'm pretty impressed with Jessica from Chicago who writes this to me. And so let's dig in, because this is the question. My name is Jessica. I'm a 24-year-old physical therapy aide living at home with my family. I graduated in December last year with a bachelor's degree in health and wellness promotion. By the end of this month, I will be working at my job for 6 months. I have set a goal for myself to pay off my $21,000 in student loans in 2 years. I started paying them off in July, and as of today, I am at $13,718.21. And it's worth noting, folks, that she's probably made one more payment since she wrote us the letter. I'm only paid $17 an hour, and I have been religiously giving about 40% or $450 out of each paycheck to pay them off. I feel like I'm on the right track, but I have worked myself to the bone with no plans for leisure or downtime. I haven't even saved up for other things. I pay my 10% to the church, and I have other expenses like car insurance and a credit card. My other financial goals are to get off my family phone line at some point. I've been wanting to do something that would make my money work for me. CDs or investments are my first idea, but I know very little and I need help. My mom insists I'm putting too much money at a time into paying my loans, but I feel like I can't make any big financial decisions until I am completely debt-free. You know, Gwen, it does sound like she's almost trying to live the life that you set up, like right in the very first stages, first get debt-free. And we love debt-free.
We do, to a point.
Exactly. So what's your first take on this, guys?
I hate to say it, but I agree with Mom.
Really? Okay.
I agree with Mom that, she's making $17 an hour, putting $450 out of each check into those student loans.
Yeah. Can we just take a moment to realize how impressive this is? She is killing it at $17 an hour, putting $900 a month on her loans, basically.
Yeah. That's like a huge chunk of her work time.
Well, at $17 an hour is, $450. If that's what she's actually doing, that's 26 hours of her time. So admittedly, she's living with her family. She's giving up 10% of her income, between paying off the student loans and the rest, she's giving up more than half of her take home at that point.
Well, I mean, just looking at the things she mentions here, her charitable contribution, her car insurance, credit card, which I'm guessing credit card must just be her living expenses, because you're at 100% pretty quick there.
But that raises the first question that I would have, because as much as we want her to get debt free and we love that idea, I'm with her mom too on this, Gwen, and I'm probably older than her mom, but also because if she's got credit card debt, if she's not paying off the credit card in its entirety, that's going to be a much bigger ticket than the student loan. So always pay down the debt that is most expensive first.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that she gives us the totals and where she's at down to the penny, 21 cents, but does not give us the interest rates on the student loans and or whatever she has on her credit card debt. Because, that's going to make a difference, right? You knock down that student loan, you knock down that credit card debt, and order of operations comes into play with the interest rate.
Sure. Yeah. I'm going to lean on, I'm probably the other side, right? Of it really would drive me crazy to have these student loans, to have this debt. So I really commend her for, putting her shoulder forward and getting after it. But yeah, the concerns about, does she have this lingering credit card? Because that would make me even more crazy than the student loan, obviously.
Okay. So we could agree credit card first, then student loans. But Tim, I gotta give a little pushback here. Having the student loan debt, as you say, would make you crazy. It is apparently making Jessica crazy as well, which is why she's doing this. But if she can make her life a little bit easier and she's carrying it only for maybe 6 more months or 8 more months, and she's able to lead some life in there, not go off and spend wildly necessarily, but do the things that she wants to do. And by the way, Jessica, do not get off your parents' phone plan until your parents tell you they want you to stand on your own.
Seriously.
100%.
I will just point out, my kids are older than you. My kids are a doctor and a teacher, and they are still on my cell phone plan. And the reason for this, by the way, is a feature that I get that is not in your cell phone manual. It is called the 24-hour callback feature, which is if I call my children and they do not call me back within 24 hours, they have no cell phone service left. So I'm willing to pay their cell phone bills for it, and I don't argue with it. It's something I can still do. So, Jessica, if your parents ask you to go off, go off. But if they're not asking, stay on the family plan and let them keep going. You'll pay it back to your kids down the line someday.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's probably way cheaper for Jessica to be on her parents' plan than it is to have a plan of her own. I remember back in the day when I was a teenager, I asked my parents, hey, can you add a line to your plan for $10 a month and include me in your plan? And they said no. And then I had to pay $60 a month in pay-as-you-go phone cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only other thing I would point out here is, why does she want to get off the family phone plan? You kind of joke about your 24-hour rule, but is there some other reason, that she wants to get off this family phone line plan? Is it being held over her head in a more restrictive way? That's what that kind of makes me afraid of.
Yes. If your parents are pushing, we would say yes. But even to that, think about this, Tim, because you were talking about the financial pressure of not wanting to have the debt hang over your head.
Mm-hmm.
But the pressure of having debt, which you can manage, right? She clearly has shown that she's got this under control.
Absolutely.
In fact, she's beyond controlling the student debt. She's killing it.
Mm-hmm.
So she could take a step back, kill it a little softly. But if the thing was, hey, my parents are putting pressure on me, she can use her money, get rid of that other pressure, and her life will be better because of how she's allocating her money.
So one thing that I thought about as you're kind of explaining this too is, she's living at home with mom and dad. Yes, she is killing it in that situation. If that's a short-term thing, right? If she can't take that, for the next 2 years and 6 months, right? Is that the thing that's driving her to say, hey, I've got to get this paid off in 2 years? Because once you move out and you start paying rent and you're paying your power bill and you're paying all the things that she's not paying right now, life really hits you over the head. So if that's what's driving her to that 2-year timeline, I got to get out of my parents' house. I think that would push me to, hey, nose to the grindstone, get it done before you get out into the real world.
Well, again, I would push back. And this is why all this stuff is so interesting. You have so much fun answering questions like this, is that I would say, okay, but she needs to make sure she's got a nest egg. Like if she wants to leave the parents' house, if she doesn't have savings or she doesn't have a cushion, she wants to be trying to set aside what she can for a cushion, which brings us to that spot about, I want to make my money work for me. Congratulations, Jessica. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
CDs or investments are her first idea, but she knows very little. What would you guys be talking about there? I know where I'd go, but what would you guys be telling her to do?
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on where she works, but, you have a finite amount of time each year to put money in tax advantage accounts to have that start growing and working for you. By focusing solely on those student loans, she's missing out on those time advantage spaces in the retirement accounts. If she has access to a 401k at work, she could put money into a Roth IRA, keep it easy and simple and do VTSAX and chill or, whatever broad money market fund there is out there. But she is probably not doing herself as much favor as she could if she was also throwing 50 or $100 in some sort of tax advantaged account for her future life. Because I'm not sure what kind of jobs you can get with a health and wellness promotion. I mean, physical therapy aid, that's labor intensive work. That's got a shorter runway and it's not a very well compensated career.
Yeah. And especially if there's a matching for her 401k, you definitely want to take advantage of that.
Yeah. And I say this, by the way, Jessica, as the father of a doctor of physical therapy, that's my youngest daughter, Whitney. Please check to see if you have matching monies. In other words, if your employer says for every dollar you put in, we'll put in 25 cents, 50 cents, or $1 for dollar up to a certain percent. even if it's going to extend how long it takes you to pay off the loan, you're getting a return of 25% to 100% before that money's even invested. It is the best money you can do. And you can be like Gwen, save hard now, be servicing the debt and making all the right things happen, but locking that money up for later. And that is the biggest thing. That's the best bargain in the financial world, because no matter what you invested in, you got free money from your employer. So if your employer has a match, get into the 401k. If they don't have a match, well, yes, we'd still like to see you saving something aside, but whether it's going to be CDs or investments really depends on your time horizon. And Jessica, at 24, living with your parents, if you need to be saving up money that you're going to use in a year or two, then maybe not so much the stock market, because
Yeah, I was thinking more of a high yield savings account, which she doesn't mention here, is where I would like to see her have at least enough money for, emergencies or what she would need to help her move out whenever she does decide to do that.
And the reason, Jessica, for a high yield savings account rather than a CD, no lockup. And right now, go to bankrate.com or gobankingrates.com or Wallet Hub and look for the best high yield savings accounts. They're paying the same amount as a CD without the lockup. So you have access to your money at all time. Super easy to do it, but you're thinking along the right path, right? So Gwen and Tim, the biggest thing is, for what she considers a problem, most people her age would be blessed to have this situation, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, she's 24 and thinking about money in a way that I don't think most 24-year-olds are. So I think she's well ahead of her peers from that perspective.
As a one-time 24-year-old who was thinking about money, I absolutely can confirm that most of my 24-year-old peers were not thinking about money in that way. They were thinking, can I pay my rent? Can I go out to the bar every weekend? Do I have some sort of food to eat at home? Do the lights stay on? Maybe. And can I go to see all the baseball and basketball games and football games that I want to go to?
And Jessica, we want you to have some of that fun, because you're not having any of that fun right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 20s are the time to have fun and go out and, form those connections that will hopefully carry through the rest of your life and give you fun stories to tell about, when you were back in the day when I was blah, 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 I was out doing blah, blah, blah. And wow, I can't believe we did that. But, here we are. We made it, like the 20s are the time to do that.
And also, by the way, Jessica, start to look for the next job. If you're only getting $17 an hour doing the work that you do, start to make sure that you're on good footing, which gives you the ability to move to the next job from a position of strength. In other words, if this job doesn't have the retirement plan, you can dig in and say, okay, I want to find one that does, but I'm financially set that I can make the transition and have things work out, and look for it. And by the way, just tell you, you can find some places that they'll give you employment bonuses. You could use that to help pay down that. Like, you could make the change, maybe upgrade things. And if you're really lucky, use that employment bonus to help pay down and get you over the hump on the student debt. But guys, as we wrap this up, first, it is make sure that you're not paying credit card debt interest rates over student loan rates, because while you didn't give us the loan rates, they're going to be lower. So pay off the credit cards first if you have any that's just beyond the monthly payment. Take a look at what you can do to capture any matching monies. And then beyond that, yes, go hellbent for leather, but give yourself a little room for fun.
Make sure you can take yourself out to lunch with your friends or go to brunch or go out to a club or bar on a one weekend a month or something like that. You don't have to go crazy, but just put a little bit of breathing room back in there, a little bit of spice.
Okay. I will cede the point and agree with you guys that yes, she does need a little more breathing room than putting every drop of spare money she has.
All work and no play makes Jessica a sad person.
There you go. And the final lesson in this is 2 out of 3 people answering this question believe you can trust your mother a little bit more than you think you can. It's okay.
24 is about the time where you figure out that your parents are actually a lot smarter than you thought.
My friends are a lot smarter than I thought, and I'm very pleased that I get to number Tim and Gwen as my friends. Guys, thanks for coming on to help me answer the question. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
No, it was a good time.
Gwen Mers and Tim Joyner are co-hosts of Fire Takes. You can check it out at the long link we've got in our show notes and on our guest page. Gwen, of course, the blogger behind Fiery Millennials. It's fierymillennials.com. And there's no question that there's more financial talk to go on today's edition of Money Life. So settle back and relax. We'll take a quick break and be right back with more.
Thanks again for listening. This has been the Fire Takes podcast. This is an entertainment podcast, and Gwen and I are not financial planners. You can reach us at firetakespod@gmail.com or check us out at reddit.com/r/firetakes. See more from Gwen at fierymillennials.com. Thanks all.